Reinier van Ede, spelled R-E-I-N-I-E-R. Last name Van Ede, V-A-N-E-D-E.
Is Van Ede
Yeah,
the correct pronunciation, sir?
Van Ede, yeah.
Okay,
It's in
all
Dutch.
right. Where are you from?
From the Netherlands.
From the Netherlands?
Yes,
Is English your first language?
it's my second.
Is your second language? You fluent in English?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. How were you employed, sir?
I'm employed by General Electric as HR manager, human resource manager.
And how long have you been with, can I call it GE?
Yeah,
How long have you been with GE?
I've been employed for 8 years.
Were you employed with GE back in November 2010?
I was.
And what position did you hold back then?
Also HR manager.
HR manager. In that position, did you become aware of when and how Andrea Snyderman was hired?
I was, yes.
And can you tell us how Andrea Snyderman was hired by General Electric?
Andrea submitted an application. She expressed interest in a role at Mr. Newman's team, and she was interviewed and got selected for the role of quality management systems leader.
All right. Who was her supervisor?
Mr. Newman?
Mr. Newman?
Yeah,
Is that the defendant, Hemi Newman?
that's Mr. Newman.
All right. Now, are you aware of how she came to the company? Did he ask for her? Did she ask for him?
No, she sent a letter or an email after being brought in connection with Mr. Newman through his wife, who met, I think, her mother's friend at a book club.
Yes.
And that's where the interest in the role started.
Did the defendant have the ability to decide whether or not Ms. Snyderman was hired?
He did.
And did the defendant exercise that ability? And I'll rephrase the question. Was it the defendant's call as to whether or not Ms. Andrea Snyderman would be hired in that position?
The hiring manager makes the final decision.
Okay, and he was the
And he was the hiring manager.
Okay. Now, you earlier referred to her as a quality management systems. What does that mean?
So what she does, she looks at the quality policy and processes and makes sure that they're being that we're compliant on those, and if there's deficiencies, that they are being addressed also.
Now, was the defendant her immediate supervisor?
He was.
I want to ask you about the defendant's duties at GE. What was he responsible for? What were his duties?
He was the operations and quality manager for the engineering department.
And what did that entail?
So there were two aspects to it. One was the operations piece of it, making sure that the budgets and everything were set up correctly. And the other part was the quality part of it, where looking at all the quality policies and make sure that they were compliant there.
How many employees worked under the defendant?
That year it went up from 18 to 23.
Okay, and what was the range of their duties? Not going through every one of them. Are we talking about engineers, secretaries? What are we talking about?
So yes, you had the two groups. You have the operations group and the quality group. Most of them have an engineering background and are professional workers.
Would you characterize the defendant's position at GE as a high-level position?
It would be considered as a high-level position, senior management.
Senior management?
Senior manager.
Let's talk about his educational background a little bit. Are you familiar with where he went to school?
Yes, I am.
Okay, tell us about that.
He did aerospace engineering in Georgia Tech, and he did his MBA in the UK.
And you say MBA, do you mean Masters of Business Administration?
Yes.
And that was it, you said in the UK?
In the UK.
Do you mean England?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember the name of that school?
I don't recall right now.
Okay. Who directed Ms. Andrea Snyderman's day-to-day job performance?
Mr. Newman.
He was her direct supervisor?
He was.
Was the defendant able to direct his travel at General Electric or GE?
He is, yes.
Was there anybody that he had to get it approved by before he directed his travel?
Depending on the kind of phase of the business, if there's a travel restriction, sometimes he would need approval up front. Normally, he could just inform his manager that he was going and where he would be going.
Was he able to direct Ms. Snyderman's travel?
He was.
Let me ask you about your contact and your relationship with the defendant, Mr. Hemi Newman. Where was your office in relation to his office?
It's on the same floor. We're about 80 yards away from each other, 50 yards, perhaps.
80 to 50 yards away from one another? How long had you and Mr. Newman worked together at GE?
I started this particular role in 2009, and he was already there, so since March 2009.
Since March 2009.
Yeah.
Let's talk specifically about the year 2010. Were you working with him then?
I was.
Okay. Did you notice any disorganized thought in your contact with him then?
I did not.
Did you notice any depression?
I did not.
Was his personality stable? Is that a fair characterization?
Yes.
Did he have extreme mood swings? And I'll explain. Did he come in one day very happy and very excited, and did he come in the other day and he was very down?
No.
Let's talk specifically about November the 18th of 2010. Do you remember that day?
I do.
How do you remember that day?
That was the day, well, it started off a normal day, and then I think at the end of the morning, early afternoon, Mr. Norman came into my office.
Why did he come into your office?
Excuse me?
Why did he come into your office?
He came to me as the HR manager, letting me know that Andrea had to leave the office because her husband was shot.
He told you Andrea had to leave the office because her husband was shot?
Correct.
Okay. When he said this to you, what was his demeanor? How did he appear?
Serious demeanor.
Serious meaning upset, or just serious meaning?
It was a serious matter, because I remember making a joke when he came in a little bit, and he said, no, I have a serious matter to address here. And that's how it started off, the conversation.
Did he seem concerned that Andrea's husband had been shot?
Appropriately concerned.
When you spoke with him on that day, well, was that the last time you spoke with him that day?
No, we had a few more contacts that day about communication.
You had a few more contacts that day?
Yeah.
And so he stayed at work that day?
He did.
All right. Did he seem any different from how he always seemed that day?
Not in my opinion.
Did he seem depressed?
No, he didn't.
Did he seem that he was somehow out of touch with reality on that day?
No, he didn't.
Have you had occasion to be in meetings with the defendant before?
Sir, excuse me?
Have you had an occasion to be in meetings with the defendant, business meetings?
I have, yeah.
Has the defendant ever supervised any of those meetings?
We co-led meetings.
I'm sorry?
We co-led meetings together, but not meetings that he supervised over me.
Well, let me ask you this question. Who is the defendant's boss?
That's the engineering leader for this division.
Okay, have you heard of Eric Gephardt?
That's the
Is that
leader.
the defendant's boss?
Correct.
All right, does the defendant on occasion lead meetings for Eric Gephardt?
He may be acting, correct.
All right, and that's when Eric Gephardt is not there?
Correct.
All right, have you had occasion to be at any of those meetings?
I have been.
And what exactly does the process of leading a meeting require?
Typically requires an agenda and making sure that it's known who's on the call, because typically it would be, not everybody would be in the meeting itself physically, but be on the call. So you would be doing a roll call, making sure everybody is noticed. And then we'd start off and then go through the different agenda items.
Does it require that the leader be organized, the meeting leader?
It would be, yes.
Okay. Now the meetings, I want to ask you about the meetings that you've attended that the defendant has led. Was he organized at those meetings?
He was organized.
Were his thoughts rational at those meetings?
They were.
Was he able to In other words, connect the dots, logically connect events at those meetings.
Yes, Chief.
Has the defendant ever spoken to you about having a delusion?
Not. No, he has not.
Did he ever talk to you about gaining 2 more children in the year of 2010?
He did not.
Thank you.
Mr. Rubin?
Your Honor, we have no questions for Mr. Van Ede.
Lawyers, may this witness be released and excused from his subpoena?
Yes, Your Honor.
We have no objection.
All right. Thank you very much for coming, sir. You're free to go. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, may we approach briefly?
Sure, come on up, lawyers. All right, lawyers, before we call the next witness, Mr. Gary, you wanted to make a motion at this point in
So
time?
I've got to make a motion, sir, under 1717-9A. Andrea Snyderman is listed as the victim per statute. She has a statutory right to be in the courtroom anytime the defendant is in the courtroom. She can only be removed respectfully by the court if she is demonstrated misconduct or the court feels that in order to give the defendant a fair trial, she can't be here. Other than that, she has a statutory right to be in the courtroom, and the rule does not apply to her by statute. So at this point in time, unless the court is making a finding of misconduct on her part, or that she needs to be gone to ensure a fair trial, the state respectfully requests her to be permitted back in the court.
Mr. Rubin?
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, we would object to Ms. Snyderman being present in the courtroom during the testimony of other witnesses in this case. Obviously, she's related or friends with a number of witnesses, and we believe under the rule of sequestration that there's a significant danger that witnesses will discuss their testimony amongst each other and thereby contaminate the truthfulness of the testimony. So we would ask the court to stay with its earlier ruling and have Ms. Snyderman discuss.
Lawyers, obviously, the rule has been invoked. The various witnesses will be sequestered at the appropriate time. In light of the position that the state is taking at this point in time, I will allow Ms. Snyderman to return if she wishes, and she may continue to be involved in the trial and be present as long as the defendant is present. So if she wants to come back in, she may at this point in time, based upon the position you're taking.
Yeah, I go get her, Judge.
You may. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Brady Blackburn. Excuse me.
Would you have your investigator retrieve that witness?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
My name is Brady Blackburn. Spelled
Yes, sir.
BRADY-BLACKBURN.
Thank you.
Mr. Blackburn, what city do you live in?
Currently?
What? Yes, currently.
Currently, I live in Arvada, Colorado.
Arvada?
Arvada.
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 And where did you live back in July of 2010?
I lived in Loveland, Colorado.
In July of 2010, how and where were you employed?
I was employed as a front desk agent at the Hampton Inn in Longmont, Colorado.
What were your duties as a you said front desk agent?
Front desk agent, yes.
What were your duties?
Well, I was the only one at a small hotel on the evening shift, so basically my duties included anything that the guest required of me. My main job description was checking people in, checking them out, taking care of needs while in the hotel, which could include anything from air conditioning maintenance to plunging toilets.
All right. In July 2010, were you working at the Hampton Inn in Longmont, Colorado?
I was.
Were you working as a front desk agent at that time?
I was.
All right. I want to ask you some questions specifically about a phone call that you got in July of 2010. Did you receive a call from someone claiming to be Hemi?
Yes, sir.
And how did you, well, when he first called, did he say his name?
No.
All right. How did you find out that it was Hemi?
From my coworkers who wrote his name down in subsequent phone calls.
Okay, when you say your coworkers wrote his name down, where did they write his name down?
In a logbook that we keep at the front desk for communication between shifts.
Okay. When you say we, you mean the hotel keeps it at the front desk?
Correct.
All right. Who has access to this logbook?
All of the front desk employees.
Is it open to the public?
No.
Just the front desk employees?
Correct.
Is the logbook kept in the regular and ordinary course of business at the Longmont Hilton?
It's kept at the front desk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it kept in the ordinary course of business? Is it something that you all keep all the time?
Yes.
All right. Your Honor, I'm showing opposing counsel. What's been marked as Exhibit 35?
Is it 35?
Yes, I do not believe that's a stipulation number, not this exhibit, but it's Exhibit 35. May I approach you?
You may.
I'm showing you what has been previously marked as State's Exhibit number 5. If you could take a look at
35. You say 35?
35. Take a look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you identify that?
Yes.
Is that the page from the logbook that you just described?
Yes, it is.
And is that page from the logbook kept consistent with the procedures that you just described?
It is.
Your Honor, at this time, I would tender State's Exhibit number 35 and damn it.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
35 is a matter without objection. You may publish it to the jury if you wish.
What number did he call from?
This number here listed that was written down by Ruth Ingraham,
Can you tell us what the number is?
404-797-3650.
And is that the note that you eventually read to or summarized to Andrea Snyderman?
I believe I summarized it, yes.
All right. Did you ever personally have occasion to have a conversation with this Hemi?
I did.
Can you tell us about that conversation?
I can. In the evening of July 17th, 2010, which is a Saturday night, I was working the front desk, and I received a phone call with a rather unusual request, which was the man stated that he and a woman who would be arriving the next evening, July 18th, named Andrea Schneiderman. He gave flight information and what time she would be arriving at the hotel. He stated that they were newlyweds and that they had never been apart, and he impressed upon me the great travesty of what a problem it was that she was going to be apart from him. And he said that they had been married the day before, and that they would be, or that she would be arriving or departing from him and arriving at the hotel the day after, which would be Sunday. And he told me that he would greatly like to surprise her with flowers and chocolate in her room when she arrived.
How did you respond when he said this?
I told him that the best course of action would be to contact a florist, that they would deliver it to our hotel, and that we would be glad to put it in his room, because we do that for those types of things for guests all the time. So I told him that that would be the best course of action, and he told me how this was not possible because florists would be closed that day, and he couldn't get anything done on Sunday.
Did he make a request of you?
He did.
Okay, what was that request?
He asked me, and he stated that he wished for me to go and personally purchase at the most expensive flowers and chocolates I could afford and put them in the room, and that he would reimburse me with a personal check when he arrived a few days later.
And how did you respond to that?
I sort of laughed. That this was a request that was sort of out of the ordinary, and I told him that that would be impossible. And he said, why? And I said, well, first of all, I can't afford anything like that. And then he said, well, why can't you afford that? And I said, well, sir, that's none of your business, and this is just outside of our realm of possibility. For policy, I can't do that.
Did he ever ask you to speak to your boss?
Yes, he did.
Okay, and why did he ask you to speak to your boss? What did he want you to ask your boss?
He wanted me to ask my boss if we could potentially charge a credit card. It was sort of a compromise I offered him. Given the situation, I said, well, perhaps we can charge your credit card, we can do a credit card authorization, and we can have all of the paperwork in hand. So I told him that I'd be seeing my bosses. It was owned by a husband and wife team, and I told him I would be seeing them at the staff picnic the next day, Sunday, before Andrea arrived, and I could ask them the possibility of this compromise.
Okay, now without telling us what your boss said, after you spoke with your boss, did you change your position about the request?
Not at all.
Did you buy the flowers and the candy?
I did not.
Did you ever speak with him again after that last conversation?
I did.
And tell us about that conversation.
It was very brief. I requested permission from my boss to call him back and tell him to stop bothering us, because he had called the other shifts as well with the same request. And so I called him back at the number provided by Ruth in the logbook, and told him that this was something that would not be possible, and that he would have to provide those amenities to her when he arrived personally.
And how did he respond?
He was disappointed, dejected, but he didn't fight me on it.
Let's shift gears a little bit. You said the note was to an Andrea Snyderman.
Correct.
Did you ever meet an Andrea Snyderman?
I did.
Okay. Do you remember when you met Andrea Snyderman?
I do.
Okay, when was that?
That would have been Sunday night, July 18th.
And when you met Andrea, did you give her the message that Hemi had left?
I paraphrased it, I believe. I did not read it.
Tell us about the paraphrase.
I believe I said something to the effect of, Andrea, Hemi says he loves you.
Andrea, Hemi says he loves you. That's what you told her.
Yes, I used his name, I know that.
Can you turn to the jury and tell the jury how Miss Snyderman responded when you told her this?
She responded bashfully. She blushed. She sort of looked down at the ground and looked back at me and nodded her acknowledgement of the note.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Rubin? Mr. Rubin, you may examine if you wish.
Good morning, Mr. Blackburn.
Good morning, sir.
Mr. Blackburn, I'm sorry, I didn't catch if you said how long you worked at the Hampton Inn.
The Hampton Inn, I was employed there for about 3 years.
When did you start?
I began in 2008.
And worked through 2011?
I quit in October of 2011.
Now, the Hampton Inn, if it's similar all over the country, they're pretty standard types of hotels, correct?
Correct.
Would you describe the hotels as a chain as economical and nice, clean,
Yeah.
put together well?
Sure.
But they're not the St. Regis, they're not Four Seasons, those kinds of hotels.
They're not full-service hotels, no.
Okay. And they don't have a concierge service for guests necessarily, correct?
No. Well, I suppose the word concierge has a couple meanings.
Well, there's not someone to provide flowers and chocolates
Correct.
and limousines, and there's not someone just designated to do all those things for guests.
Correct.
As the front desk agent, I think you described, you do all sorts of things from checking guests in to unclogging a toilet if you have to.
Correct.
Okay. So, as the front desk clerk at the Hampton Inn, you don't get requests to personally go out and purchase flowers and chocolates for guests.
Correct.
Would it be fair to say that in your 3 years working for the Hampton Inn, that's the only time someone has asked you to do that?
That, not necessarily, no. People occasionally request us to go buy them things. This was an unusual circumstance because of the story behind it. Occasionally we have guests who request us to, can you get me a bottle of wine or things like that. But no, but this was unusual in its personal nature that he requested it personally of my account.
And of your own
Funds.
Your own funds.
Correct.
Because the hotel wouldn't provide it. He wanted you, and he called you a friend, did he
Correct.
not? He said, "You're my friend. Friend, will you go out and do this?"
Well, I didn't phrase it that way, but yeah, he said, "Brady, I'm asking you as a friend."
Okay.
Yes.
And of course, you didn't do it.
No.
You wouldn't do it unless ordered to by your boss, I guess.
Correct.
Okay. Do you have the exhibit? Is it up there?
He has it.
Okay. May I approach on?
You may.
I believe you testified that he initially called on July 17th, 2000.
That's Saturday, correct.
That's a Saturday night?
Correct.
Okay. And that's the time he made that unusual request, correct? And he told you that he had just gotten married.
Mhm.
This is the first time they're apart.
Mhm.
And this was going to be difficult, correct?
Excuse me, you have to say yes or no, so the court reporter can take any response.
Yes.
That's right. And that's why he wanted you to make that gesture for him to Miss Snyderman, Mrs.
Yes.
Snyderman.
He made an emotional appeal.
He made an emotional appeal to you.
Mhm.
Excuse me, you have to say yes.
So, yes, sir.
I'm going to try
No
to
problem.
prompt it too. Mr. Blackburn, would it be fair to say that Mr. Newman was persistent in his request?
Yes.
Okay. He, despite your saying you couldn't do it, kept pressing, hoping you would change your mind, correct?
Yes.
How long do you think you talked to him on that initial phone call?
It would be an approximation, perhaps 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay. Is that the phone call where he actually told you, did he tell you what he wanted the note to say? Or did he tell another coworker?
He told another coworker.
Okay. So you talked to him for about 10 minutes that first time.
Correct.
Is the only other time you talked to him the last time when you told him to stop bothering you?
Yes.
Okay. You made an entry on States 35. WTF am I supposed to do with this?
Yes, sir. Do you know what that means, sir?
Oh, I'm old, but I'm not that old.
It's a technical hotel term.
My teenage daughters have told me what that means.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Blackburn,
Yes, sir.
that's, and I can put it up on the Elmo, it's off. That's your response, your irreverent response, there it is,
Yes, sir.
to the love note.
It is.
And that's your way of saying to the other people you're working with, this is ridiculous. We don't do this. What am I supposed to do? Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do you know the name of the employee who actually wrote the note?
Yes, that was Ruth Ingraham.
Ruth Ingraham.
Mhm.
Okay. And what were you supposed to do with this note?
When I went in, Ruth told me that she had been dictated this note and that I was to include it with the flowers and chocolate if we obtained them. But at that point, she had written it before the staff picnic during her shift. And then she actually gave me a ride to work that day on Sunday and told me there's a note there, but since we're not getting flowers and chocolate, you know, I don't know what you want to do with it. But it was supposed to be included with that.
Okay. And as a result of that's what you summarized basically for Mrs. Snyderman.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess I think she may have suggested that I still give it to her as kind of a consolation.
I'm sorry, she being Ruth Ingraham.
Sorry, yes, to give.
Suggested that you give to Andrea Snyderman the note.
Correct.
Okay. Now, this 10-minute phone call from Mr. Newman, this pressing of please do this for me, you know, be a friend, use your own personal funds, I'll reimburse you. That's what you were talking about for 10 minutes.
For some of it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, this request was so unusual and so maybe annoyingly persistent that you discussed it with other employees, correct?
Yes.
And it became the topic of discussion at the company picnic.
Yes.
And when was the company picnic?
It would have been Sunday afternoon.
So the call comes in Saturday night, and then Sunday afternoon, it's a topic of discussion at the company picnic.
Right. Partially because I had told him I would discuss it with my bosses.
And is it your understanding that Mr. Newman not only made that request to you, and he didn't get very far with you, but that he also requested the same thing from other employees?
He did.
Do you know how many employees he talked to about this request?
About this particular request?
To send chocolates and flowers to the room of Mrs. Snyderman.
Correct. I believe 3. Myself, Linda Powers, and Ruth Ingraham.
And when you testified, when Mrs. Snyderman came in, you paraphrased the note. You didn't read it exactly.
Correct.
You paraphrased it for her as a consolation to the persistence of Mr. Newman.
Yes.
Okay. And she acknowledged what you told her.
Mm-hmm.
And then, is it the next day that you called Mr. Newman, or he called you?
The second time we spoke?
Yes.
Would have been before Andrea arrived on Sunday.
Okay. So you called.
I was at work.
And that's when you told him to stop bothering us. Is that
I didn't phrase it that way. I tried to be very professional about it, and I said, Mr. Newman, something to the effect of, Mr. Newman, I'm sorry, but I've spoken with my bosses. We're not able to fulfill this request.
Was the feeling by you that he was bothering you? Was it that persistent?
During our conversation, he felt he was persistent.
During the course of his conduct over Saturday and then into Sunday.
Yes, it felt persistent.
All right, lawyers and parties, let's go back on the record. Mr. Rubin, you may continue, Counselor.
I was just going to announce, Your Honor, we have no further questions from Mr. Black.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Rubin. Mr. James? Lawyers, may Mr. Blackburn be released and excused from his subpoena?
No, Judge.
All right, thank you very much for coming, sir. You're free to go. Have a good day. Fly safely. All right, next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Linda Powers to the stand.
Linda Powers, Linda Powers.
Ms. Powers, what city do you live in?
Longmont, Colorado.
And did you live in Longmont in 2010 or July 2010?
I'm sorry, could you speak up?
Did you live in Longmont in July 2010?
Yes, I did.
All right.
Is it Long? How do you pronounce the city again? Longmont?
I'm sorry.
What is the name of your city?
What is the name of the city? Longmont?
Longmont.
Long, Longmont.
Thank you. Longmont.
I'm sorry, yeah. Mhm.
No problem. It's a southern thing. No problem. Go right ahead.
How were you employed in Longmont? How were you employed?
Right now I work for the St. Vrain Valley School District.
Okay, back in July of 2010, how were you employed?
I worked for the Hampton Inn.
For who?
Hampton Inn.
Okay. And what were your duties at the Hampton Inn?
I was the front desk clerk.
And what did that entail? What did you do as the front desk clerk?
I answered telephones and I checked in guests, checked out guests, took care of all the guests, basically.
Okay. How were you employed prior to being in Longmont as a front desk clerk?
I lived in New York and I was a police officer in the city of Yonkers, which is in the county of Westchester, which is on the Bronx borderline.
How many years?
Approximately 10 years.
Let me ask you about July 18th, 2010, okay?
Yes?
Did someone call you that day claiming to be Hemi?
Yes?
And can you tell us what he asked or what he said to you during this conversation?
He said that his new wife was coming to stay, check in later in the day, and if I would be able to get flowers, a bouquet of flowers or a box of chocolates, so he could surprise her.
What did you say to him?
No. I told him that I don't do that. He would have to go through the manager or assistant manager on Monday morning, but this was a Sunday, so.
Yeah. Was he okay with that? I mean, how did he respond?
No, he wasn't at all. He was very persistent. He said, but, you know, I need to do it today. She's checking in later. He asked me if I would go out and do it on my own. I told him no.
And how did he respond then?
Well, he just was persistent. He wanted me to do it. He asked me if I could do it after I told him I couldn't leave because I was the only one on the desk and I couldn't just leave, so.
At any point during the course of this conversation, did he ask you to leave a note for his wife?
Not me. No, he did not.
When you say not me, was there someone else?
I know this after, that he did, yeah.
Okay.
He just asked me to go out and buy flowers, box of chocolates. Would I do it after my shift?
Okay.
With my own money, he would pay me back.
Do y'all have a logbook?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a logbook at the Longmont?
Yes, we do.
All right. And do you make entries in that logbook?
Yes, I did. Also in the conversation, he mentioned, after I said no, that he had also asked Brady, and he wanted me to call Brady, and I said no, not calling Brady. It's his day off, you know. So I wrote it in a logbook, and I said, I'm writing in the logbook, I'm gonna tell you what I'm writing. And I wrote, let's see, I believe I wrote
Would it assist you if you actually saw
Andrea
them?
Snyderman's husband, new husband, or no, husband called, and he said his new wife was checking in, and he wanted to know if you had done the favor he'd asked her, something like that.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
I am showing you what has been previously marked as State's Exhibit number 35. Take a look at that and tell me if that is a page from the logbook
Okay.
that you're referring to.
Yeah. Want me to read it?
Yes.
Brady, Andrea Snyderman's husband called for you to remind you what you are going to do for him / his wife.
And did you pass that message on to Brady?
I put it in the logbook, and the next person comes on, and when Brady comes in, he's going to get it. I did not call him or tell him.
Did you ever talk to him again after the conversation that you just referenced?
On this, yes.
Okay.
And he said, yeah, he called me, and I told him no. So,
How did he respond then?
Brady?
No, Hemi.
Oh, Hemi?
Did you ever speak with Hemi again after the conversation?
Okay. He was just persistent, and I was trying to check in and out guests, so I was really busy. The phone was ringing. The guests are coming. They want their favors, they, whatever, check in, out. Actually, they all check out at that point. So I told him I had to hang up, and it was hard to hang up. And he called me back later that morning and asked me if I'd called Brady, and I said no. And he asked me again, would I go out with my own money and buy the flowers or the chocolates? And I said no.
Was that the last conversation you had with him?
Yes, that's
Thank you.
what I recall.
All right. Thank you, Judge. I have no further questions at this point.
Ms. Ruth?
Your Honor, we have no questions for Mr. Powers.
Floor has been, Ms. Powers, be released and excused from her subpoena.
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objection? All right, you're free to go, ma'am. Have a safe
Thank
trip
you.
back to Colorado.
Thank you.
All right, fly safely. All right, next witness.
State calls Ruth Ingraham to the stand.
State and spell your name for the record.
My name is Ruth Ingraham, Ingraham.
Miss Ingraham, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yes,
All right. In July of 2010, what city did you live in?
Longmont, Colorado,
And how were you employed in Longmont then?
at the Hampton Inn.
What was your position there?
I worked as a front desk agent.
And what does that mean? What did you do?
I make reservations, answer the phone, check guests in and out, help them with anything they might need while they stay.
On July 18th of 2010, were you working at the Hampton Longmont?
Yes, I was.
And were you working as a front desk agent?
Yes, sir.
Did you have a conversation with Linda Powers on that day?
I did.
Okay, did she speak with you about a conversation that she had with someone named Hemi?
She did.
Right. And what did she tell you?
She said someone she believed named Hemi might call and try to get me to do some things for him, like buy flowers and chocolates to put in one of the incoming guest rooms.
Did you ever speak with someone named Hemi?
I believed his name was Henry at the time, but yes, he called me.
Can you tell us about that conversation that you had with him?
Yeah, he called the hotel and said that his new wife, her name was Andrea Snyderman, was checking in to the hotel that night, and that they were newlyweds, and that she had to come to our hotel for a week for business, and that since they'd been married, they'd never been apart, and so she was going to be very lonely without him, and he wanted me to purchase flowers, chocolates, and a nice card to write a note in to be put into her room. He wanted me to purchase these things, and then he said that he would be flying out as a surprise during the week, and at that time he would pay me back. He would write a check. And that's a very unusual request because usually people call a florist and we'll deliver flowers to their room if that's what they want us to do, or hand them to them upon check-in. But I was pretty new to the hotel, and I said, I don't think I can pay for these things myself. I would have to check with my boss about that. So it's very romantic, but I just don't know what the rules are. I have to check with my boss.
How did Hemi respond when you said this?
He was very pushy. He was very insistent. He tried to talk me into it in several different ways, and I just kept saying it's really nice and it's really a romantic gesture, but I can't do that. He wanted me to write a note, which I then wrote into the logbook that we keep at the front desk.
Well, let's talk about the note. Did he tell you what to write in the note?
Yes.
All right, and did you write that down?
I did.
All right, I want you to look in front of you. You have State's Exhibit number 35. Is that a page from the logbook?
It is.
All right, and did you write the note on that page?
I did write the note on that page.
All right, can you read what you wrote?
Yes, I wrote, Andrea, for the sweetest and most beautiful woman in the world. Peaceful sleep, knowing that you are always in my dreams. Love, Henry or Hemi. I wrote Henry, I think, initially.
Okay.
And then I also made a note above it that says she's had a 7 o'clock flight, wanted chocolates and flowers, that they were newly married. And I put his phone number down because I said, I have to check with my boss. So if I can get your phone number, then I can call you back if he says it's okay for me to do this.
Did you check with your boss?
I did. We had our company picnic that day, and when I arrived at the company picnic, I said to my boss, this man called the hotel and asked me to do these things and pay for them. I don't have any money to do that, and is that okay? And he said no. He said he should call a florist. He said, I have no problem with putting flowers in the room or giving them to the person when they check in.
Did you ever speak with Hemi again?
I did not.
Thank you. No further questions, Judge.
Ross, you may.
Afternoon, Ms. Ingraham.
Ms. Ingraham, do you recall what time of day you spoke to Mr. Newman, Hemi Newman?
My shift would have started at 11 in the morning, so it would have been about, I believe it was about 11:30 in the morning.
And is it on July 18th, 2010?
Correct.
Okay. And is it your understanding that at the time he called you, he had already talked to Linda Powers?
That is correct.
Is it also your understanding that by the time he talked to you, he had also talked to Brady Blackburn?
That is also correct.
So you were the third employee he was insisting on chocolates and flowers for Miss Snyderman?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay. You described that his request was pushy. He was insistent that it had to be done. It had to be done that day, and he was insisting that you do it for him, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And it got to the point where you thought he was almost desperate for someone at the Hampton Inn to fulfill his request, correct?
I believe I used that term in my statement.
Okay. Is it also correct that y'all talked about this at the company picnic? And I say y'all, I mean, that's Southern expression. You and
my
the
boss,
owners and
the owners that are my boss, and Brady and I were sitting at the same table when I spoke to my boss about it.
Okay. You talked about it, and it stuck out because it seemed bizarre to you, the way he was insisting on all this, correct?
It was unusual. I had only been employed at the hotel for a little over a month, and I'd never worked in the hospitality business before. I'd always worked in retail positions, so I didn't know what things were appropriate and okay to do and what weren't. So I felt like I needed to check on that.
And you recall talking to a detective in Longmont, a Colorado police officer, correct?
Yes.
And giving a written statement?
Yes.
And do you recall telling the officer that you talked to Brady about it, and it was so bizarre to us?
I don't know if I used those words or not.
Would a review of your statement refresh your recollection?
I suppose.
Now, push
You
on.
may.
Miss Ingraham, if you'll just look to the last page, this part.
Okay.
Do you recognize it?
I do.
You can look at the entire document, so make sure it's in context.
Yes, I've seen it relatively recently.
Does that refresh your recollection as to what you told the detective?
Yes.
Okay. And did you tell the detective that you and Brady were talking about it because it seems so bizarre to us?
I don't recall telling that to the detective. I do see that I wrote it here in my statement.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
Just a few questions.
Oh, you may ask them as you wish.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, you've never met Mr. Newman before, have you?
No,
You don't know him.
I do not.
All right, and so you don't have a frame of reference in terms of how he normally acts, correct?
No, not at all.
And so in terms of making a judgment whether it was personally strange for him to do that, you can't say that, can you?
No,
And that's because you don't know him.
correct.
Thank you.
Any recross?
No, Your Honor.
Lawyers, may this witness be released and excused from her subpoena?
Yes, Your Honor. No objection.
Thank you very much for coming. Enjoy your flight back. Call your next witness.
Spell your name for the record.
Lindsey Clayton,
We're going to spell your name for the record.
LINDSAYCLAYTON.
Thank you.
Ms. Clayton, where do you live?
Longmont,
Is that in Colorado?
correct?
In July of 2010, did you live in Longmont, Colorado?
Yes, sir.
And how were you employed in July of 2010?
Hampton Inn.
And tell us about your duties and what you did at the Hampton.
I was the front desk manager.
What does that entail?
Anything from reservations, check-ins, departures, cleaning, laundry, anything.
As a manager, were you a supervisor?
Yes.
All right. And if you could move a little closer to the microphone and speak up just a little bit. On July 21st, 2010, did you encounter a lady by the name of Andrea Snyderman?
Yes.
And did you make any handwritten or typed or computer recording of this encounter and what you did?
Yes.
Was a record generated?
Yes.
And what type of record was it?
In our on-cue system, it was generated. On-cue system.
And
I'm sorry, if you could just speak up a little bit.
If you, and I know it's it's an unusual environment, but I need you to talk loud enough so
Okay.
that the jury can hear you and the lawyers, and that way they won't have to ask you to keep repeating yourself,
Thank
okay? Just try to talk loud enough so that the deputy on the back row can hear you, okay?
All right.
Let's try it that way.
How exactly is the on-cue system, how exactly does the on-cue system work?
It generates any type of changes through a record history, which any of the Hilton system or employees can access.
And are you familiar with this system?
Yes, sir.
Does the public have access to it, or is it just the people that work with Hilton?
Only the people that work with Hilton.
And the records, particularly the record of the conversation that you had with Andrea Snyderman, was it kept on the on-cue system?
Yes.
All right, and was it kept in the regular and ordinary course of business?
Yes.
Your Honor, if I can approach the witness.
You may.
Showing opposing counsel, Exhibit 36.
All right. You may approach.
Thank you, Judge. Showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 36. Take a look at that and tell me if you can identify that.
Yes.
Is that the record that you just mentioned that was kept on the on-cue system?
Yes.
Is that the record that you said was kept in the ordinary and regular course of business?
Yes.
And is that the record of the conversation that you had with Andrea Schneiderman?
Yes.
Right. Your Honor, at this time, I'll attend to State's Exhibit number 36 of that.
Any objection?
No objection, please.
36 submitted without objection. You may publish it to the jury.
When you spoke with Andrea Snyderman, can you tell us whether or not she requested anything?
There was a request for a room change, and this is the record of one reservation for the first nights and then the second check-in reservation for the second night.
Okay, so let's talk about, you said a request for a room change. Let's talk about her first room when she first got there. Can you tell us when she first arrived at Longmont?
Sunday, July 18th, I believe.
And what was her room like then? What was the nature of her room then?
2 queen beds.
2 queen beds. All right, and when she spoke with you, she was requesting a change?
There was a check out and check back in with me.
Okay, what does that mean?
A check out of the first reservation, checking back into the second reservation, which was a request of a different room type.
All right, and what was the nature of the different room that she was requesting?
A single bed.
She started with 2 beds and she was requesting a single bed.
Yes, excuse me, you have to answer yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
I corrected.
So the court reporter can take it down. You may continue.
Did you ever change the number of guests in her room?
Yes.
Let me ask you again. When she first checked in, how many guests were on her reservation?
Beginning 1.
And when she spoke with you and made the change, how many guests were in the room with 1 bed?
2.
Did you note a checkout time on there?
There was a notation of a late checkout request.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
There was a request for a late checkout.
Go ahead.
And when was that?
When was the request or when was the checkout time?
When was the checkout time?
1 p.m.
What is the normal checkout time?
Noon.
Noon. All right. Go ahead.
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Rubin?
Your Honor, no questions from this. Thank you.
All right. Lawyers, may Ms. Clayton be released and excused from her subpoena?
Yes, sir. No objection from the state.
No objection.
Ms. Clayton, you're free to go. Have a good day.
Thank you,
Have a
sir.
safe flight back to Longmont.
Thank you.
Colorado. Call your next witness.
Ennea Wysocki, Ennea
She's been sworn. How do you pronounce your first name?
Ennea.
Ennea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I had a problem too, Judge.
I'm working on it.
Ma'am, in July of 2010, where did you work?
Frontier Airlines.
And do you still work there?
Yes.
What were your duties in July 2010 at Frontier, ma'am?
I'm the administrative assistant there and I enter complaints and compliments that we receive, and also part of my duties is providing documentation when we get subpoenaed for information for past travel.
And so you have access to the documents of Frontier Airlines to provide them pursuant to a subpoena?
Yes.
Okay. And did you receive a subpoena from our office?
Yes.
Okay. Judge, may I approach?
You may.
I hand you what's been marked State's Exhibit number 37. Can you identify that document for me, please?
Yes.
What is that document?
This is a PNR. It's a passenger name record, past date travel record.
Okay. Does Frontier Airlines keep lists of all the individuals who flew with the airlines?
Yes.
Do you do that in the normal course of business?
Yes.
How are the records maintained?
Electronically?
Okay. Does the public have access to those records?
No.
Are the records made at or near the time of the event?
Yes.
Does that document, or is that document one of those documents that record the activities of the airlines as it relates to a passenger?
Yes.
And is that the document you provided to our office pursuant to subpoena from Frontier Airlines records?
Yes, it is.
Judge, at this time, we'd move to admit number 37.
Any objection? Is this who's what? All right. It's submitted without objection, number 37. You may publish it to the jury.
Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome.
Did Frontier Airlines have any records of Hemi Newman flying during July of 2010?
Yes, we did.
Okay. What do those records show?
They show that Mr. Newman traveled on July 21st from Atlanta to Denver, flight number 305, and he returned July 23rd, Denver to Atlanta, flight number 228.
What time did the flight arrive in Denver?
It arrived at 8:20 p.m. Local Denver time.
8:20, you said?
Yes.
Okay. And what time did the flight arrive back into Atlanta?
At 11:48 p.m.
On what day?
July 23rd.
Thank you.
And does that record indicate whether he actually was on those flights?
Yes, these lines don't print until after the passenger has been boarded.
So you can say with certainty that Mr. Newman made both of those flights?
Yes.
And I want to confirm 37 is in, Judge?
It is.
Thank you, Judge.
Any questions, Mr. Rubin?
We don't have any cross-examination.
All right, no questions. Lawyers, May Wysocki?
Wysocki.
All right, I think I got it right. May she be released and excused from her subpoena.
We have no objection.
No objection.
Have a safe flight back to Colorado.
Thank you.
All right, next witness.
Yes, sir. State calls Michael Heater, Judge.
Yes, sir, thank you.
State and spell your name for the record.
Michael Heater, Michaelheater.
Sir, in August of 2010, how were you employed?
I was employed with the Embassy Suites in Greenville, South Carolina.
And what were the nature of your duties at that time, sir?
I was the assistant general manager still.
And what does the assistant general manager do, sir?
I oversee the rooms division of our operation. That would be front desk, housekeeping, maintenance.
Does the hotel keep reservation records in the normal course of business?
Yes, they're all done with Hilton.
I'm sorry, they're done with Hilton?
Yes, the Hilton system handles all the reservations.
Thank you.
And are those reservations computer maintained?
Yes.
Are they put in at the time or about the time the reservation is made?
We handle our reservations through our central reservation office in Tampa, so Tampa makes those reservations.
Okay. And are those reservations, are the records of those reservations kept on a secure system?
Yes.
So does the public have access to that to make changes?
No.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
I hand you what's been marked State's Exhibit number 38. Can you identify this document for me, please?
Yes, this would be a record out of our on-cue system from Hilton, from a guest
And what
record.
does that record show, or what is it a reservation for, a record for?
Record for Andrea Snyderman.
And for what date, sir?
Can I get my glasses?
You may. Always good to be able to see.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
The date would be August the 26th, 2010.
And this would be for the Embassy Suites in Greenville, correct?
Correct.
And that's the hotel you were at?
Yes.
Okay. Judge, again, I move to admit number 38 at this time.
Any objection to Mr. Peters, number 38?
No, sir, Your Honor.
38 submitted without objection.
Okay. Now, you indicated...
Motion to the jury.
Yes, Judge. You indicated Andrea Snyderman made the reservation, correct?
Correct.
Did she give a phone number?
The phone number is required for reservations, so I'm sure she did.
So the phone number would be in there somewhere, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
What was the nature of the reservation that Ms. Snyderman made?
This is booked under a GE corporate ID. So there would be a...
What did she want? What was the reservation for?
She requested a non-smoking king adjoining to another non-smoking king.
Okay, so she wanted 2 rooms?
2 rooms.
And they had to be adjoining?
Adjoining, yes.
Did the parties check in?
Yes.
What day did they check in?
They checked in on August the 26th.
What time did they check in?
3 o'clock in the afternoon.
And that's in Greenville, South Carolina?
Correct.
Did they in fact get adjoining rooms?
Yes, they did.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Peters, any questions?
No, sir.
Lawyers, may this witness be released and excused from his subpoena?
No objection by the State, Judge. No objection, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Heater, you're free to go. Have a good day. Drive safely.
Thank you.
All right, next witness.
Yes, Judge. State calls Mike Bonasia.
Yes, sir.
Spell your name for the record.
Michael Bonasia, B as in boy, O-N-A-S-I-A.
Sir, on August of 2010, how were you employed?
With a Courtyard by Marriott, our sister property.
Okay. Were you related at all to a Hampton Inn in Greenville, South Carolina?
Yes, I was.
And that's the hotel you were actually at the time?
I was actually, in August, I was with our sister property, the Courtyard by Marriott, and moved over to general manager of the Hampton Inn in December.
Okay. And that you said sister properties?
Yes, Hospitality America is our management company. We manage both hotels.
Okay. So in December, you actually managed the Hampton Inn in Greenville, South Carolina?
Correct.
Okay. What's the nature of your duties at the Hampton Inn, sir?
I'm the general manager.
Okay, so you're the man in charge?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did the Hampton Inn receive to your knowledge, well, let me back up. Judge, may I approach the witness?
You may.
I want to hand you what's been marked State's Exhibit number 39. Can you tell me what this is?
This is a guest folio receipt for Hemi Newman. His stay for October 21st of 2010.
Okay, and is that, in layman's terms, a reservation?
Yes, it is.
Okay, what is it a reservation for?
It is for one guest room at the Hampton Inn Suites in downtown Greenville.
Okay, is it for 2 adjoining rooms?
Not on this receipt. This is just for one single room.
Okay. Look at the next page.
This is the guest comments, and there was a request for connecting rooms, and a note was made by our guest service manager that to not move them.
Okay, so the reservation is for a room.
The last part, to not move them?
Yes, the request for is needs connecting rooms, do not move.
All right, go ahead.
So if I'm correct, then there were 2 rooms involved and they had to be connecting.
Yes, the reservation originally was made for 2 rooms, yes.
Okay, and are these records kept on computers?
Yes, they are.
And are they made, or is this document generated at or near the time the reservation is made?
Yes.
Does the public have access to these computer records?
They do not.
Are they secure?
Yes, they are.
Are they kept in the normal course of business?
Yes.
Judge, at this time we move to admit States 39.
Any objection to S39?
No, sir.
All right, S39 is admitted without objection. You may publish it to the jury.
Yes, Judge. Did the person that made that reservation actually check in?
Yes.
Okay, do you know what time they checked in? Does it tell you what time?
Not on this. I do know from, this is, check-in time was 17:50.
And that would be 5:50?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And did they get the adjoining rooms they were requested?
Yes, they did.
And 39's in, Judge, that's all I have.
All right. Ms. Peters, any questions?
Just
Oh, sure you can. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You may approach the witness.
I'm going to have just a moment.
Oh, yeah. Take your time, sir.
Yes,
Take your time.
Thank you very much.
No problem. You may proceed, counsel.
I have no questions, Your Honor.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Lawyer's name, Mr. Bonasia? Bonasia?
Bonasia.
Bonasia?
Bonasia.
Bonasia. May Mr. Bonasia be released and excuse me, Mr. Peters.
My cane, Judge. Yes, sir. No objection.
No objection.
All right. You're free to go, sir. Have a nice, I don't know if you drove a flu, but have a nice trip back.
Thank you very much.
All right. Call your next witness.
Yes, sir. State calls Christina Olivera.
State and spell your name for the record.
Christine, Christine, Olivera, Olivera.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Ma'am, in October of 2010, how were you employed?
I was working at Pulse. It was the name of the lounge that I was working at.
Okay, and where was that located at?
Downtown Greenville.
South Carolina?
Yes.
And what was describe the club or the establishment for me, please.
It was a lounge. We were open from Tuesday to Saturday, and we had live music. It was a lounge environment. We served sometimes dinner, depending.
Okay, was it for primarily dancing, primarily for drinking, combination? What was
It was a combination of drinking, dancing, like a lounge. Served small foods and alcoholic beverages, so a lounge.
And what was the nature of your duties there at that time, ma'am?
I was a bartender.
And do you remember anything unusual about the night of October 21st, 2010?
Unusual? No.
Did you notice any individuals that were in the lounge at the time?
Well, I do recall Mr. Newman and his guest, or Andrea. I was alone in the bar. We really weren't in a heavy season, so I had the DJ playing, and they were really much the only ones there.
Okay. May I approach, Judge?
You may.
I'm handing them what's been marked, or the witness what's been marked exhibit number 40. Can you identify that item for me, please?
That's the receipt.
And is that from the lounge Pulse?
Pulse, yes.
And is that dated October 21st?
October 21st, 2010.
And
yes.
is that your name on the
Yes, it is.
receipt as the server?
Yes, it is.
So you actually served this couple?
I did.
Okay. And do you have any memory of what they were doing at the time they were at?
I actually do remember, because they were my only clients that night, or my only people that I was serving, so they had my undivided attention. I recall that the music was playing. Mr. Newman seemed very happy to be there. They ordered their drinks. He had a discussion with me about how happy and how nice the bar was. Andrea seemed a little bit upset, went to the bathroom a couple of times, and that's when Mr. Newman had approached me at the bar and saying she was dealing with a real jerk at home.
No, I'm sorry, slow down. Say that again. He said what to you at the bar?
He opened conversation with me, and apparently she had seemed upset and was going back and forth to the restroom. And I asked if everything was okay, if they needed anything. And Mr. Newman took the liberty to tell me that she was dealing with a real jerk, were his words.
Okay. Did he explain what that meant, or he just said that?
Just dealing with a real jerk, that that this environment was something that they needed, that she needed to feel better. So
okay. She
was apparently upset about something.
Okay. About what time of the day was this that they were in the lounge?
I want to say anywhere between 8:30ish to maybe 9ish, 10.
Okay.
Around there. They were about there for an hour or so.
Is the time printed on the receipt?
It is.
And does your memory correspond?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And do you remember what they did while they were at the restaurant or at the lounge?
They drank, they danced.
Okay, they danced.
Yes.
Did they dance separately, or did they dance together?
They danced together.
Did they have physical contact when
Yes, they did.
Describe what you saw.
Well, imagine a dance floor, and they had the entire place to themselves. What stood out most was that he kept spinning her around to the salsa music. I know at one point she kind of was dancing for him. He pulled her back, groped her. They were groping each other. I know, because I kind of turned away.
Now let me say, you said each other. Was each party doing the groping? That's what you described?
Yes.
Okay, please continue.
Excuse me, when you say groping, what are you talking about?
Groping, like handling each other, like,
I don't know what you're talking about.
Let's say he had his hands on her rear end, and she was hugging him, and they looked like a couple. I mean, groping, like touching each other.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. At any time did you see the parties kiss?
Yes, I did.
How many times did they kiss?
I would say about 3 times.
Okay.
When you use the term kiss, what is that?
Kissing like a pop kiss, like kissing like they were kissing.
Okay.
Not like making out, like, I mean.
Was it lip-to-lip contact?
Yes, it was.
Okay, not on a cheek or not as a... Okay. How long did the kisses last?
While they were dancing, I mean, I don't know, seconds. It could have... They were having their own moment. I didn't want to interrupt them, but they were kissing and they were being affectionate towards one another.
Next question.
Do you know where they went when they left?
No, I had told them about a Halloween party that the club was going to be having. He said that he would definitely be checking it out, and they left very happy. They left with their arms around each other. He kissed her on the way out, and that was the last I saw of them.
Were they drinking while they were there?
They were.
Would you call them drunk in any fashion?
No.
Okay, so how many drinks did they have that you were aware of?
I can't recall how many drinks. Not many. I mean, they were fine. They left the bar fine. Responsibly, I could not let them leave. And they were walking to the hotel, is what they had mentioned. They were walking back.
You said responsibly you couldn't let them leave.
Like if they were impaired or if they were driving, obviously, but they were fine too. They just had like maybe 1 or 2 drinks. Nothing.
At any time, did you see the female push the male away?
No.
Did you see the female?
In fact, I'm sorry. In one occasion, she actually kissed him and like kind of brushed it off. In the beginning, when she came to the restaurant, she did seem upset. And then, came back and kind of brushed herself off and kept going. Like whatever was bothering her wasn't going to bother her. And at that point, they were dancing on the floor, and she did kiss him. She approached him.
In your mind, did you believe you were seeing a
couple?
A couple.
Yes, I did.
And is 40 in, sir?
Yes. Well, no. Any objection to 40?
No, sir.
All right. Yes, then, at this point, without objection, you may publish it to the jury if you wish.
Thank you, Judge.
Any more questions?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Peters, you may cross-examine if you wish.
Just very briefly.
Ask as many as you wish, sir.
Ms. Olivera, you've described to us about the twirling and the dancing and the handling of one another. And I believe you've indicated that during that dancing, it wasn't just their hands making contact with each other's bodies, but there were times when they actually, their bodies rubbed together. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And I think you've explained to me that they were, in this motion, sort of grinding their hips together.
Grinding and his hands on her rear end, and she was embracing him as well. I mean, it's kind of hard to describe, but they were very affectionate towards each other.
And at the point in time that you described when she went to the restroom, I think you had
to say yes or no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
To say, because see, the court reported that none.
Okay.
So
I'm sorry,
you say
Judge.
yes or no.
Yes, sir.
You may continue, Ms. Peters.
And at that point in time, when she had gone to the restroom, I think you indicated that Hemi actually came over to you and the two of y'all had a conversation.
We had a brief conversation. He asked if the band or the DJ played every night, that the ambiance was very nice. He kept thanking me for the service and that she really needed this. Again, repeated that, she was dealing with a jerk and going through some personal stuff, but that she wanted to go out and, take her mind off things.
And I think you described how he was as very happy.
He was very happy.
And I think you described him as he just really seemed to have like a personality.
He was very giddy, like hyper and not hyper, happy. He was like, it was a first date, you're on your first date and oh, wow, I got her. And he was very excited to be with her.
And I think you indicated that at one point while she was in the bathroom, as you were observing him, he looked at you and he just said, "This is great."
Yes.
This is great. Is that correct?
Sir. Yes, he did. I mean, the bar, it was really to themselves, so they had my undivided attention. It was kind of like I didn't want to interrupt them, but he was interacting with me, and he thank you repeatedly. This was wonderful. This is so great. The music is really great. I think he mentioned something about her knowing how to dance, and at that point, they were dancing on the floor. She was dancing kind of for him, I would say.
When you say dancing for him, what does that mean?
Well, he's standing here and she was like kind of dancing towards him. They were like flirting with each other, I guess you can say, in a danceful way. But they did kiss. I did see him with her hands on her rear. She kissing him is what I observed. And them leaving, they left arm in arm. And the window that's by the bar, it had, if this is the bar, there was a window to my left, which I can see. I saw them leaving and they were kissing on the outside and they continued to walk.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any redirect?
No, sir.
Lawyers, may Ms. Olivera
Yes.
be released and excused from subpoena?
No objection, sir.
No objection.
Thank you for coming. Have a nice trip back to Carolina, South Carolina.
Thank you.
Call your next witness.
State calls Melanie White.
Thank you.